there's only a few fighters available for UFC 300. So what are the best possible scenarios? We're going to get into all that next.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the Community MMA with your host, Chris Cross.
Yes! Yes! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Baby! Baby!
Man, what a day out here. It's raining like crazy. It's muddy everywhere. The weather isn't good today. But it's okay because we got plenty of things to talk about in terms of the UFC and MMA as a whole. No topic bigger right now than UFC 300. I mean, who's fighting at this thing? Who's going to fight at UFC 300? All the good fighters are gone. All the big fights have been named. But you got a few guys left. Islam Makhachev, Leon Edwards, Hamza Chimaev, Alex Pereira, Tom Aspinall. But in order for UFC 300 to really jump off, you're going to need to add a big name. And that's got to be Hamza, Alex Pereira, or Islam. One of those three have got to be in the mix. Or I just don't see it being the big card that we've been told that it would be. So, I mean, let's get into it. As far as who's left for UFC 300. Let's put to bed the rumors and scenarios, and let's just give them to you and see where it goes. So if you start with the lightweight division, right? And the premise here is that all of these champions don't really have big matchups in their division. Now, Islam has Charles Oliveira. That would be a big one. But is it big enough to headline? Because a lot of people just believe Oliveira will lose in the rematch again. I don't know if it's big enough to headline. So that's a question mark there in that division. When you go to welterweight, you got Leon Edwards, but he's beating Usman. They're talking Muhammad, but with that sell, Shavkat may be a big draw. But I don't know if it's big enough for the main event. And then you continue moving up to light heavyweight. Pereira versus who? Jamal Hill, not yet. Prochazka, he's already fighting. Ankalaev already fighting. Jan Blachowicz, no. Rakic already fighting. So you have minimal options there. Heavyweight, will John Jones return in time? I don't think so. Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira would be interesting. So that's the whole premise, right? Is that none of these guys in their respective divisions have big matchups. So you're going to have to do something. Like Islam versus Leon Edwards, that would be huge. Hamza versus Alex Pereira, that would be huge. Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall for a third belt, even if it's interim, that would be huge. One of those three scenarios have got to take place, if not two out of those three. And Hamza may be left on the back burner because it could be Islam versus Edwards and Pereira versus Aspinall. And I think that will be good enough to create a lot of intrigue. And then the 300 number would put it over the top, obviously. Those are the three best scenarios I see right now. That's the only. I mean, give me other scenarios that people are going to watch and tune in. I don't think they're there. So these are the three scenarios. One of those three, if not two out of three, have to happen to salvage this card. And this is why it's taken so long, because you know they're looking at the divisions and seeing if there's any matchups there for the title, or if they can do an Islam versus Leon, and then who else do we get? So those are the routes that are gonna happen. Please believe it. Now we're back to fight week. I mean, it's going down. Fight week has begun. It's Sunday. And fight week is here. Fight week is here. And it's exciting because it's been several weeks since we've had a fight week. And it's headlined this week by Ankalaev versus Walker, the rematch. First one in no contest. Both fighters upset at that time. And we get the long-awaited rematch. But first, let's get, we're going to jump into the big three today. Let's start with Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez and get into that prediction here in a second, because this is an intriguing one in the lightweight division, the best division in the UFC. And I'm curious what you guys think on this one. Who's going to win this fight? Let me give you the detailed prediction, and then we'll get into it even further. In the lightweight division of UFC Vegas 84, this is the best division in the UFC in terms of competitiveness and depth. Jim Miller, longtime fighter. He's 36-17. Gabriel Benitez comes in at 23-11. Both guys 5'8". Benitez 35, Jim Miller 40. So he's getting up there. Both guys fight left-handed. I like that. Benitez doubles up Miller in activity, though. 4.8 significant strikes per minute, or just about 2.9 for Jim Miller. That's going to be about 15 to 25 significant strike difference. But Jim Miller lands a takedown every other round. So what's Benitez's takedown defense? 58%. So there is an avenue here for Jim Miller, who's coming off a win against Jesse Butler by KO, but he did lose to Alexander Hernandez before that by decision. Before that, he won the previous 3. So he's won 4 of the last 5 against the likes of Eric Gonzalez, Nicholas Mata, and Donald the Cowboy Cerrone. Now, on the other hand, Benitez, coming off the win against Ontiveros by KO, he should, but he lost to David Onama and Billy Q Quarantillo. Those are tough fights. Benitez is capable of winning, and Miller is slowing down, but at the same time, Jim Miller is still good enough to win this fight, and he should win this fight. He's a veteran. Benitez has 11 losses, and this is one that Jim Miller has got to prove that he can still win. He's not taking on a guy that's like 25-3 or something. I mean, the guy's 23-11. So Jim Miller wins this thing despite the lack of activity. He wins it on the takedown game. Maybe gets the finish to move to 37-17, in my opinion. Lightweight division, UFC Vegas 84. Yeah, so, I mean, Jim Miller is ever the veteran. And Gabriel Benitez has way too many losses for me to think that he's going to beat a veteran in Jim Miller. Now, Jim Miller's slowing down, so you can make the case the other way. But at the same time, he's not slowing down enough to lose to a guy with 11 losses. Jim Miller's better than some of those 11 losses. That's how I look at it. I mean, that one's real simple to me, even though it's a tough division, as it always is in the lightweight division. Then as you work your way up, a big flyweight matchup between Matthias Nicolau and Manel Kape. 2 highly ranked guys, and you don't see a flyweight up this high unless it's a big one. Even in a pay-per-view setting, I mean, you could have the championship on the line, and that could be fight 4. So, you know, that's just how it goes. But this is a big one, and these are 2 guys that are really working their way up, looking for a chance at the title. Let's get into it right now. In the flyweight division in UFC Vegas 84, you got Matthias Nicolau, Brazilian, coming in at 19-4, taking on Manel Kape, who comes in at 19-6. So 2 impressive fighters, both very capable of winning. And believe it or not, Nicolau is a 2-1 underdog in this fight. He's 1 inch taller at 5'6". He's 31. Manel just 30. Manel, on the other hand, has a 2-inch reach advantage, 68-66. He's a southpaw. He fights left-handed. Nicolau fights right-handed. So some clear differences, and they continue. Manel, 5.1 significant strikes per minute to 3.7 for Nicolau. When you get into the takedown game, it's the other way, though. Nicolau gets a takedown like every other round, where Manel gets one like every 5 rounds. So that's not great. But Manel, 77% takedown defense. That'll be helpful in this fight. Nicolau, 93. He's a beast at defending the takedowns. Now, he's come up to loss to Brandon Royval, but that was a step up. Got KO'd in the first round. Before that, he beat Matt Schnell. Big win by KO. David Dvorak, nice win by decision. Even though he got outstruck in that fight, it's just 39-36. Kind of a boring fight in terms of activity, no takedowns. He also beat Tim Elliott, good fighter, and previously did win a split decision over Manel Kape back in March of 2021. But that was a different time, and this is the rematch. Nicolau did land 2 takedowns in that fight. Manel didn't land any. So despite the 77% takedown defense, he does have the capability of landing takedowns on Manel, as he's shown before. But since then, Manel's been perfect, beating O'Day Osborne, Zhalgas Zhumagulov, David Dvorak as well, and Felipe Dos Santos by decision. So it's one of those things that is Nicolau falling off and Manel has gotten that much better? I don't know. I think it's going to be a great fight, but in the first fight, it was a split decision. You know, 61-55 Manel, although he gave up 2 takedowns, that's what cost him. He's going to defend the takedowns better here. I think Matthias Nicolau will be aggressive on the takedowns, but he's going to get stuffed most of the time, only lands 1, and it does go Manel's way. I think he's going to squeak out a victory here. I'm with the odds makers, not quite 2.5 to 1 favor for Manel, but, you know, maybe 1.5. But nonetheless, Manel's going to win this fight, in my opinion, to move to 20-6 here, flyweight division, UFC Vegas 84. Yeah, and that's kind of a tough one for me because I like Matthias Nicolau. I think he's a good fighter, but so is Manel Kape. And when you get up into the upper echelon of the rankings, it makes it even that much more difficult to make a prediction. Because you're dealing with fights that could really go either way. And that's one that can certainly go either way. But we'll take Manel Kape to win that one. And this is kicking off the new year, man. We're 0-0 right now. And you know, on this card, we gotta start fast. 8-5 at least on this card. In the main event. And when you're talking main event, you want to start the year at 1-0 and go from there. We ended the season in a tough spot over the last 10 to 12 weeks, specifically in the main event. Now, we still were like 60%, but we started taking some chances, like on Colby and things like that, and ended up on the wrong side of those predictions. So we got to start the year good, and this is a big one. Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. In the light heavyweight division at UFC Vegas 84, you got Magomed Ankalaev coming in at 16-1, taking on Johnny Walker, who comes in at 21-7. And this is a rematch in a fight that really never got off the ground, never got finished. Right? Fight was stopped early, and therefore we got another fight. So this is Ankalaev versus Walker 2. Now Magomed stands 6'3", Walker 6'6", so Walker's 3 inches taller. They're both 31 years old, so you got to like that. Johnny Walker has a long reach, a 7-inch reach advantage, 82-75. Both guys stand right-handed. Both guys are just under 4 significant strikes per minute. Ankalaev lands like a takedown every 3 rounds. Johnny Walker 1 every 6 rounds. Ankalaev 86% takedown defense. Walker just 57. So, you know, Ankalaev has a little bit of an advantage on the ground, can defend the takedowns. Johnny Walker is slightly a better striker, but all in all, these two match up pretty well. So let's dig a little bit deeper. The last fight, the fight was stopped 3 minutes and 13 seconds into the first round. And at that point, it was kind of going about the way the stats are set up. It was 14-13 Walker in significant strikes. Ankalaev did have a takedown. And that's about right at their average in both areas. Now, before that, Ankalaev also had a draw, a split draw with Jan Blachowicz for the title. In a fight that if he would have pressed a little bit more, he might be the champion right now. So he's had back-to-back setbacks, a draw and then a no contest with Walker. So he's losing some steam. But before that, he was on a roll, beating Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, Volkan Oezdemir, Nikita Krylov. You know, he came into the UFC winning 9 straight fights. That's crazy. You know, so people are starting to forget who this guy is. And this is a big setting for him to get the win. Now, Walker also beating Anthony Smith by decision, Paul Craig by KO. He submitted Ian Kudalaba. So this guy's no joke as well, and he's getting better. It seems like he's getting better. But Ankalaev is a heavy favorite for a reason. And we're kicking off the year with the first main event, and we got to get off to a 1-0 start. So I love to say or go with Johnny Walker because I want him to actually win this fight. I got to be realistic and say who is going to win this fight. And that's going to be Magomed Ankalaev. So, you know, if we were later in the season and we're like 24-10 and we want to take a chance, maybe we go with Johnny Walker. But in this case, we're beginning the season. We got to get off to a 1-0 start, and I got to calm down and keep it realistic and say Ankalaev is a favorite for a reason. But I don't know if he should be a 5-1 favorite. That's a little bit much for me. I do think Johnny Walker has an opportunity to win this fight. Because he's getting better. You know, he had a few setbacks right in the middle of his UFC career up to this point. And over the last several fights, he's beginning to get better and better and better. So look for a much tougher fight than the odds would indicate. But Ankalaev will still pull this thing off, and he can't afford a slow-paced, boring fight after the last 2. So he's got to get the win here in dominant fashion. And And in doing so, he'll move to 19-1. I mean, he's not gonna outstrike Walker, I don't believe, but once he gets this fight taken to the ground, it may allow him to outstrike him that way with the ground strike. So we'll see. But either way, in my opinion, Ankalaev wins through the 19-1 light heavyweight division. UFC Vegas 84. Yeah, 5-1. I mean, that's a little much. You know, maybe if you're looking at Walker as an underdog that big and thinking it's probably closer than 3.5-1, 4-1 underdog, which it might be by fight time. So you might want to take a chance there, but I still think Ankalaev pulls this thing off. Make no mistake about it. He's just too big. Johnny Walker's on a roll, but Ankalaev is too big. All right, as we get into the Q&A, a lot of discussions this week. Pink Panther says, bad matchup for Pereira against Hamza. Yeah, I think so too. I would love to see that fight scheduled. Conor finna KO Chandler in 60 seconds. So you have some of that. There's a lot more Conor defenders out there than I thought. And you know me, I love Conor. I'm rooting for him every time. I'm telling you he's going to win every time. Please don't forget. Even though I ask questions on some videos. Brian Covington says, what are you talking about? I'm not a fan of Conor, but he is the tough path. Not that he has a tough path, but Conor is the tough path. Okay. How tall is Ian? Conor looks pretty big here, I'd say. Nugget of power. And I posted a video showed that McGregor versus Ian Gary, and Ian Gary is just towering over McGregor. Even though in the portion of the video I put up, you see McGregor doing kicks and spinning back kicks, so you really can't see, but it's a big difference in size. I don't care what anyone says. Another one weighs in. Unfortunately, Mick Chandler got robbed by McGregor, and you're right what you say. The UFC will bend over for him, and like him or not, he will sell pay-per-views. In case you're wondering, the word cobber in my previous comment is an Aussie slang word for mate. Okay, I didn't know that. Cobber means mate. All right, I'll remember that. So keep dropping those cobbers, and I'll figure it out as time goes on. I like it. I'm not opposed to learning other languages, for sure, especially slang. At Cody Book says, we just watched Strickland dominate one of the best fighters in the UFC has ever seen, in Adesanya. Yeah, you sit here and ask if he can beat a guy who beat up a wash-up Robert Whittaker. See, I'm just asking the question, and I appreciate you weighing in. And he says, show some respect. I hear you, no doubt. Strickland is that dude. Speaking of Sean O'Malley, can he? Of course. Beat Cheeto Vera. He has the skills to beat Cheeto. He had his moments in the first fight. And then Walt White says, time will tell. That's going to be an interesting fight where either guy can win. Big opportunity for Marlon Vera. But O'Malley just got the belt. Is he really going to give it up this quick? I don't know. I don't think so. At Jay Burton, laugh out loud, I will be astonished if there's any outcome at all other than a first-round KO with Strickland seeing stars for days afterwards. Don't get me wrong, though. I would indeed love to see Sean Strickland successfully defend his belt, but DDP is just way too much to handle, in my humble opinion. Yeah, I mean, DDP is for real. That's a tough guy. And, man, the first big pay-per-view of the year is going to be interesting. It's going to be. And if it's a quick finish, would one of these guys be able to step in at 300? Is that what the UFC's waiting for, too? Would Hamza get the call? I don't know. And then it's during Ramadan, so who knows? So you got a lot of questions about UFC 300. Who's going to be fighting there? Can Conor beat Chandler? Who's going to win between Strickland and DDP? Just a lot of questions to be asked as we as we are now into the new year. I mean, we are there, ladies and gentlemen, and this thing's going to get kicked off here this weekend. It's coming very quickly. And I'm excited. The first card is, it's okay. But the first card of the year really doesn't matter. It's just like we just want, it's been 3 or 4 weeks now. We're hungry again. And it doesn't matter who is fighting. We're ready to see it. But, we'll be with you all week long leading up to the fights. Johnny Walker, Magomed Ankalaev, who you got? For now, it's your boy Chris Cross. Have a great day and God bless. As always, peace.